Today, I'm going to be talking about Booktube's SFF Awards and how you can become involved as well. Up next on Rogers Reads. Hello everybody, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So I've been following the SFF Awards for a couple of years already, but this is the first time that I'm actually an active part of the Booktube community, so I am super stoked to join in this year, though I typically do read a number of the shortlisted books each time. So for those of you unfamiliar with SFF, it stands for Science Fiction and Fantasy. And if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that I am a huge fantasy fan. I was also super into sci-fi when I was a teen, but I'm discovering my love for it once again. So that being said, the Booktube SFF community are those of us within Booktube who enjoy reading in those two genres. Now, as the Booktube SFF website states, the community isn't just limited to people who make videos, but it's for everyone who watches, comments, and loves science fiction and fantasy. So each year, the Booktube community nominates its favorite science fiction and fantasy works from the previous year in various categories. So those are then counted and then turned into a shortlist, which I'm going to go over today briefly. There are then various read-alongs of the shortlisted books, as well as chats and discussions in the various forums. And I'll put a link to the SFF website below in the description so that you can check it out if you like. So the awards are administered by Elizabeth from Books and Pieces. And she manages the voting, the shortlisting, and all the other administrative bits. The books are then judged by popular vote and by a panel of judges. There's also a Goodreads group and a Twitter group that you might be interested in joining, and I'll put links to all of these goodies in the description. I'll also put an Amazon link to all of the books if you want to check them out further. So this year I'm going to participate in the read-alongs, which begin on March 1st. So I'm not sure that I'm going to get to all of the books, especially the ones that are book 3 in the series, but I will give it my best shot. So the categories, if I can get my iPad going here. So the categories are Best Fantasy, Best Science Fiction, Best Young Adult Novel, Best Middle Grade Novel, Best Debut Novel, and Best Graphic Work. And during the months of March, April, and May, we'll be reading one book from each category during that month. So I'm going to go over the shortlisted books that the group will be reading and the month in which they'll be reading them. So please feel free to join in. Now I'm not going to provide a synopsis of the books, but I will provide a link so that you can read the blurb on your own if you choose. You know, I might do a weekly or monthly vlog as I make my way through the books. Not sure which one yet. So so let's get on with the books. So the first book is The Calculating Stars, A Lady Astronaut by Mary Robinette Kowal. So this follows a woman whose dream is to become the first female astronaut. The next book in March is Circe by Madeline Miller. So this follows demigoddess and witch Circe. So I actually own this one and I've been meaning to get to it for a while, but looks like I'll be getting to it sooner rather than later. Next on my list is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So this is the first book in the Legacy of Orisha series, and from what I can understand, it's a West African-inspired fantasy in which our main characters are trying to bring back magic. Now I also own this book, but I was waiting for book 2 to come out, which is due out this year, I do believe, but I guess I'll be reading it in March. Next book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So I've actually just started reading this, so this is a great timing. So this is the first book in the Folk of the Air series and follows a mortal girl who finds herself caught in a web of royal fairy intrigue. and I'm really enjoying it thus far. Now, the second book in this series recently came out, which I do believe is called The Wicked King. So depending on whether I like this book, I'll probably be checking out that book as well. Next book on the list is Arush Shah and the End of Time by Roshani Chokshi. So this is a middle grade fantasy that follows a 7th grader named Aru who lights an ancient lamp, and when she does, the world freezes and she releases the awful sleeper. And I imagine that from there, all sorts of interesting hijinks ensue. And I actually have this one on hold at my library, and I was just notified that it's in. So I'll be able to get to this one pretty quickly. Next book on my list is Aquicorn Cove by Katie O'Neill. So this one I don't know anything about, and for some reason this just has not crossed my radar. So you'll need to click on the link below to read the blurb. The next book is, Beneath the Sugar Sky by Hyttinen McGuire. So this is the third book in McGuire's Wayward Children series. But I do believe this is a standalone, that it can be read independently of the other books without having had to read the first two in the series. I'm going to have to double check this before I delve into it. So now we move on to April. And the first book in April is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. So this is the second book in the Villain series. And I just read the first novel, actually, Vincis. I just read it this month, with this month being February, and it was phenomenal. So I can't wait to dive into this one. Let's see, what do we got next? We have Foundry Side by Robert Jackson. So this is a new epic fantasy series which is called the Founders Trilogy, and it features all sorts of magic and heists. So it sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Next up is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So I have heard a lot about this book, all of it good. So from what I can gather, this is a historical military fantasy. It's also filled with all sorts of treachery and magic. So I'm interested to get to this to see if the hype is well deserved. Next up is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a new science fiction series by Brandon Sanderson and follows a girl who dreams of becoming a pilot in a dangerous world that's at war for humanity's future. Now, I actually own this one as well, but I haven't had a chance to read it, so this is a good excuse to. Next up is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. So this is a middle grade book about a girl named Cass who can see ghosts. I actually own this one as well, and I've just been waiting for the right time to read it. So I guess that's now. Alright, so our next book is The Adventure Zone, Here There Be Gerblins by Clint McElroy, Griffin McElroy, Travis McElroy, Justin McElroy, and Carrie Peach. So this is a graphic novel based on a story created in a podcast where 3 dudes and their dad play a tabletop role-playing game in real time. So sounds intriguing. I do hope I'll be able to get to it. Next up is Artificial Condition, The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. So I do believe that Murderbot is the sequel to All Systems Red, Martha Wells' award-winning novel. So if that's true, I'm not sure if I'll be able to read both of them by April. Possible, but doubtful. So now we move on to May, the last month of the readathon. So the first book we're reading in May is Record of a Spaceborn Few by Becky Chambers. So this is the third book in the Wayfarer series. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get to the first 2 by May, as my TBR is enormous. But this book takes place in the universe of the Galactic Commons as humans, artificial intelligence, aliens, and some beings not yet discovered explore what it means to be a community. So I really like the sounds of this, and I do plan on checking out this series. I just don't know if I can do it by May, given that this is number 3. The next book is The Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. So this is the second novel in the Book of the Ancestor fantasy trilogy, the first of which I also have not read. And I really don't know anything about this one either, so you'll have to click the link. Next up is Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. So the synopsis for this book says that while most of the world has drowned beneath the sudden rising waters of a climate apocalypse, Deneta, formerly the Navajo Reservation, has been reborn. Gods and heroes of legend walk the land, and so do monsters. So, sounds good. Sounds like something I would be interested in. Next up is The Muse of Nightmares by Lady Taylor. So this is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer, both of which have received some major hype on Booktube. Now the first book, Strange the Dreamer, is actually on my TBR for April, so I might be able to pull off reading this one if I bump it up by a month. I'm not sure though. I think both of these books are fairly long. But I've been meaning to dive into them, so good opportunity for me to do so. So next up is Wonder Myth, The Calling of Morgan Crowe by Jessica Townsend. So this is a middle grade fantasy series and sequel to the best-selling book Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crowe. Now, I have not read the first one, but I have wanted to because I've watched and read a lot of great reviews about it. So I'm going to try to squeeze the first one in and then get to this one by May. Should be able to, right? So next up is Monstrous Volume 3 by Marjorie M. Liu and Sana Takeda. So this is a graphic novel and winner of the Hugo Award and British Fantasy Award, and is the third graphic novel in the series. So I haven't read the first two, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to this one. Though usually you can tear through graphic novels pretty quickly. And the last book on the list is Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nina Okorafor. So this is book 3, the highly acclaimed science fiction trilogy that began with the first novel, Binti. Now given that this is the third one in this series, I don't know if I'll be able to get to it, but I suppose anything's possible. So those are the books that are shortlisted for the SFF Awards and the months in which we'll be reading them. So I will also put the read-along timeline in the description below, listing all books and the months in which we'll be reading them, as well as a link to each book, so you can check them out further. So how about you? Are you joining in? If so, let me know in the description and which books you plan on reading, or are you ambitious and plan on reading all of them? So that about does it for the SFF Awards. As always, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button below, as it helps my channel out. And also subscribe if you haven't. That way you'll get notified when I release new videos. So that about does it. I will talk to you in the next video. Roger and out. Ooh.